the hunger of darkness. Winters in Iowa were the kind that seeped into your bones. The wind wasn't just cold. It was merciless, tearing through every crack, every gap, as though searching for warmth to devour. The world outside was buried under snow, and the sky seemed to press down, heavy and gray, like it might collapse at any moment. That night, the storm had reached its peak. Snow swirled violently in the air, reducing visibility to almost nothing. My mom had left for the evening, headed to some office party in town. That left me alone in the house with my best friend Colton. We had taken refuge in the basement, where it was warmer, cozy even. The hum of the space heater filled the room, and we'd stacked a few blankets on the couch. The plan was simple: hang out, play some games, and since Mom wasn't around, maybe sneak a drink from the wine stash. Colton sat sprawled across the couch, his dark hair falling into his eyes as he talked animatedly about some dumb thing that had happened in school earlier. I wasn't really listening, though. I was watching him instead. I'd known Colton forever. He'd always been my best friend, the one person I could count on to make me laugh, even when I didn't want to. But lately, something had shifted. I'd started noticing the way his smile made my chest tighten, the way his voice sounded when he said my name. It was confusing and exhilarating all at once. "Mia," he said, snapping his fingers in front of my face. "You're not even listening to me." "What?" "Yes, I am," I lied, feeling my cheeks heat up. "Yeah, right," he teased, leaning closer. "You've been staring off into space for like 5 minutes. What's going on in that head of yours?" "Nothing," I muttered, reaching for the wine bottle we'd swiped earlier. "Just hoping Mom doesn't come back early and catch us with this." He laughed, a low, warm sound that sent a strange flutter through me. "She won't," he said confidently. "Besides, I think I'd be a great distraction. All I'd have to do is flash her one of my winning smiles, and she'd forget all about it." "Sure, Colton," I said, rolling my eyes. "You're irresistible." "You said it, not me," he replied, grinning. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, passing the wine back and forth and joking about the ridiculous things we'd seen at school that week. Outside, the wind howled louder, rattling the small basement window. It was the perfect night, just the two of us, hidden away from the world. Until the garage door slammed shut. The sound above. I froze, my heart skipping a beat. "Was that your mom?" Colton asked, his voice dropping to a whisper. "No," I said slowly. "She said she wouldn't be home until late." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the floor above us. "Hey, anyone home?" my mom's voice called out. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. Something about her voice sounded wrong. It was hers, but empty, hollow. "Yeah, we're downstairs," I called back, my voice trembling slightly. There was a long pause, and then, "Can you come up here and help me with something?" I exchanged a nervous glance with Colton. "That doesn't sound like her," he said quietly. "It's probably just the wind messing with her," I said, more to convince myself than him. Still, my legs felt like lead as I climbed the stairs. Each creak of the old wood beneath my feet seemed unnaturally loud. When I reached the top, the house was dark. Too dark. The kitchen light, which was usually left on, was off. The only illumination came from the faint glow of the snow outside, filtering through the windows. "Mom?" I called out, stepping cautiously into the kitchen. No answer. The air was thick, oppressive, and every instinct screamed at me to turn around. But then Out of the corner of my eye, I saw something move. It was just a flicker, a shadow that shouldn't have been there. My breath caught in my throat, and I took a shaky step back. "Mom?" I called again, my voice barely above a whisper. Silence. Then, from somewhere deeper in the house, I heard a faint, wet, hissing sound. The basement. I didn't wait to see what it was. I turned and bolted back down the stairs, nearly tripping in my haste. "Mia!" Colton was on his feet the moment I hit the bottom. "What happened? What's wrong?" "There's no one up there," I gasped. "It wasn't her." "What do you mean?" he asked, his brow furrowing. "I mean, something's in the house, and it's not my mom." His face paled, but he didn't hesitate. "Okay," he said. "We're staying down here. Lights off. Stay quiet." He reached for the lamp, plunging the room into darkness. The only light now came from the small, frost-covered window near the ceiling. I could feel him next to me, his shoulder brushing mine. The contact was grounding, but I could hear the tension in his breathing. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. "No," I admitted. "Are you?" "Not even a little," he said with a nervous laugh. But then he reached over, his hand brushing against mine. It was a small gesture, but it sent a wave of warmth through me, even as the cold fear wrapped around us. "We're going to be okay," he said firmly. "I promise." The shadow. Then we heard it. A low, dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled across the floor above us. It was accompanied by the faintest hint of that hissing noise, growing louder with each passing second. It's at the door," I whispered, my voice barely audible. The basement door creaked open. My grip on Colton's hand tightened as the light at the top of the stairs began to flicker. Shadows danced wildly on the walls, twisting into shapes that made my stomach churn. "We have to run," Colton said, his voice trembling. "To where?" I hissed. "It's everywhere." The light bulb exploded, plunging us into total darkness. For a moment, there was only silence. Then, from somewhere in the blackness, came the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps descending the stairs. The sound of those footsteps on the stairs was deliberate, each step echoing through the basement like the ticking of a countdown. I pressed myself closer to Colton, clutching his arm so tightly I could feel the muscle beneath his jacket. "What is it?" I whispered, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know the answer. "I don't know," he muttered. His voice was low, but I could hear the strain in it. The steps stopped halfway down the staircase. For a moment, there was nothing but silence, so thick and oppressive, it felt as though the air itself were weighing us down. Then came the hissing again, louder this time, as if it were right outside the edge of the darkness. "Do you see anything?" I whispered, my eyes straining to pierce the shadows. "No," he replied, "but I think it sees us." That was when the basement lights flickered back on, bathing the room in a harsh yellow glow. The sight made my blood run cold. There was something standing on the stairs, halfway between us and the door. It was tall, unnaturally so, its body a mass of writhing blackness that seemed to ripple and shift as though it were made of smoke. Its face, if you could call it a face, was blank, save for two hollow voids where eyes should have been. And it was looking right at us, the window. "Go!" Colton yelled, shoving me toward the small basement window. I scrambled to my feet, my hands fumbling to grip the edge of the window frame. The icy glass bit into my skin, but I didn't care. All I could think about was getting out, getting away from whatever this thing was. Colton was behind me, trying to force the window open. "It's frozen shut," he growled, throwing his weight against it. "Try harder," I cried, glancing over my shoulder. The figure on the stairs began to move, stepping down one slow, deliberate step at a time. Its movements were jerky, unnatural, like a puppet being dragged along invisible strings. And then it spoke. "Mia," it said, in a voice that was eerily familiar. My stomach churned. It was using my mother's voice, but there was something wrong about it, something hollow and mechanical. "Mia," it repeated, "come here." Colton slammed his shoulder into the window, and with a loud crack, the ice broke. He grabbed me and pushed me toward the opening. "Go, now." I hesitated for only a second before climbing through, the cold air outside hitting me like a wall. I turned and reached back for Colton, my heart pounding as I saw the thing at the bottom of the stairs, its shadow stretching unnaturally across the floor. "Colton!" I screamed, pulling at his arm. He was halfway through the window when it reached him. A tendril of blackness shot out from the creature's body, wrapping around his ankle and yanking him back. "No!" I screamed, grabbing him with both hands. The thing's strength was unimaginable. It pulled and pulled, dragging Colton back toward the basement, his nails scraping against the windowsill as he tried to hold on. "Mia, let go!" he shouted. "No!" I yelled, tears streaming down my face. "I won't let you go." With one final, desperate pull, I yanked him free. He tumbled out of the window and into the snow, landing hard beside me. The escape. We didn't stop running. The moment Colton was free, we bolted through the snow, the icy wind biting at our faces. Behind us, the basement window slammed shut, and the house seemed to shudder, as though the thing inside it was furious that we had escaped. We made it to the edge of the yard before collapsing into the snow, gasping for breath. My hands were numb, my chest burning, but I didn't care. We were alive. Colton sat up, brushing snow from his jacket. His face was pale, his lips trembling, but he reached for me, pulling me into a tight embrace. "You're okay," he said, his voice shaking. "We're okay." I buried my face in his shoulder, letting his warmth calm the trembling in my body. "What was that?" I whispered. "I don't know," he said, "but it wanted you." Life. After darkness. The next few weeks passed in a blur. My mom sold the house without hesitation, and we moved closer to the city. I never told her what had happened that night. How could I? She'd think I was crazy. At school, things returned to normal. Or at least, they seemed normal on the surface. Colton and I were closer now. There was no denying it anymore. The fear and danger we'd faced had only brought us together. He walked me home from school every day, his arm casually slung around my shoulders. He sat with me at lunch, his hand brushing against mine under the table. And when his friends teased him about it, he just smiled and shrugged. "What's so funny?" I asked one afternoon as we sat on the bleachers, watching the snow fall outside. "They think I've gone soft," he said with a smirk. "Have you?" I teased. He looked at me, his expression softening. "Maybe, but only for you." My cheeks flushed, and I looked away, but I couldn't hide the smile tugging at my lips. The echo, sometimes, on cold winter nights, I still feel it. That shadow, that presence lurking just beyond the edge of the light. But I'm not afraid anymore, because now I'm not alone. Colton and I are a team, a couple. And if that darkness ever comes back, it won't find fear in us. It'll find us standing together, ready to face it.